Good morning. I am going to show you the kitchen and the hallway and the television's room with the poets on it today. And then there's still a couple more zones after that in my serial. Kitchen is a lot like this. And we have two works in view here. The left being Anya St. Clair's colourful, bright, fast flowers. Anya is a successful local painter and offered these very kindly as, I would only imagine, like a memorial, like when you go to a funeral or a sick person's bed and you give flowers. These flowers are a bit sick themselves, I would say, but that's just my reading of it. Anya's engaging in a gestural and immediate painting exercise out loud on loose canvas. And typical to Anya's work is this opening and gateway through into wider terrain. Hopefully that can happen. The other work in the shot is this very simple yet clear oil painting by my friend Pete Cox, who is a neighbour. And Pete's an amateur painter and has actually offered several works in this show. That's a oil painting of the Palestinian flag. And another work that Pete did the other day, which I forgot to mention, was this little one, because it went with the drone strike there. And Pete called this Inshallah, as Allah wills it. And there's poppies and irises around the outside, and a sort of oil paint's quite gluggy. It's harder to get fine detail on it. You've got to let the under surface dry before you. But yeah, no, I really appreciated Pete's offering here. Inshallah, it's nice to learn of those. Next work in the kitchen is Bruce Mahowski's work. And this is a fine little pen drawing, original, of a PLO freedom fighter. Bruce managed to sell it on Facebook. Congratulations, Bruce. Bruce is donating his artwork money. Ila Khalid. So I think she was part of a crew of PLO activists that hijacked some planes in the 80s. I don't know the details. I'm not endorsing anything like that. But, you know, one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter, depending on what side of the empire you happen to live on. Wonderful work, Bruce. Thank you very much. This is my work. It's an older work, and it's called Heart of the Matter. And obviously, it's a kind of primordial scene. It could be inside a heart. It could be a battleground. It could be a memory. It could be an eviscerated landscape. I think of this structure as a tower. I've thrown hot coals on the surface and mended the holes. And with some time with this work, faces, figures, forms and narrative come out, and landscape clarifies itself a little. And it's just simply those themes of the internal and the deeper resonance of land, as if land itself had a consciousness that interacted with the population on top. Yeah, those are sort of holistic indigenous values, I suppose, be it Palestinian or Maori or Celt. So, yeah. Anyway, these are some of the Palestinian villages that were forcibly evacuated under IDF control. And this is graffiti in abandoned houses 10 years on after a village got evacuated and the Palestinian people had to leave their homes. And I love the way the bushes in the background there merge with the graffiti line of the crude waving, being child. Here's another one. And a third. You could go to the Tate Modern, you could go to MoMA in New York, you could go to the Prado in Spain, you could go anywhere and not see as interesting painting as that. People genuinely expressing from a sense of psychic self, place, meaning and purpose will always trump a pretentious art gesture inside a gated community of elitist practice and curatorial prison guards of ideologue. I'm simply saying that folk are what art is. Primary. Here's a folk painting from Amanda Burgess, my dear friend in Wanganui. How much further till this killing stops and we have food? Poignant statement. And that's on the back, which I've shown in another video. Few people have remarked upon this painting and noticed it, which is a small miracle in an exhibition for people to make noise about a work. I believe it's $200. Amanda's in her mid-50s and she has successfully captured a anxious inner child, I would say, and maybe even a blonde inner child. Who can say? And those two images go rather well together, I thought, in the kitchen. Moving along. Thank you, Amanda. We could go to Amanda's other work in the kitchen, actually. Here we are. Bloody light bulb. Bloody light bulb. Here we go. Now, audience, can you tell me what's going on here? Little Johnny in the back row, do you have an opinion? No? Well, I think Amanda's done a structural painting using the inserts of a photo frame and combined sort of abstract mark making to resemble camo or architectural distress. And don't fall off on camera, James. Yeah. we are going to have a problem with one hand, aren't we? Yes, there we go. Yeah. So Amanda experiments around a lot of techniques. And this is her statement that came with the show. Reason why I wanted to be part of Recognising Palestine exhibition. Thank you, James. Thank you, Amanda. Tis the time to speak up whilst we still can have a voice. Whilst you still have a voice. It matters this genocide could have happened to any of us. Does the COVID jab count for one? The silent one killing many? Good point, Amanda. Well said. This is a 2016 work that I made called Palestine. It's got a use of doily in it. I was racked with tears in front of it. It was the last work of a series of work, and I sort of saw that it was kind of structures falling and crumbling and ghosts and a kind of griefful violence. This is another one in the series. I would sort of call it integrated collage painting. Collage with canvas paint. This is a piece of sack. Attempting a kind of graphic and internal process with mixed media over time as layers dry and like accruing surface detail, making sort of inner worlds. Death culture's endless profit. Yeah, that was me thinking about evil in another iteration. Calvin Fowler, Independence, strong, abstract, expressionist work. I walked into his lounge to meet him and hear him read his wonderful poem, which I will publish shortly on my channel. Calvin is a pastor in the Christian faith and worked in Lithuania, I believe, as a pastor when the Soviet system fell. And these are also Calvin's very apt older statement graphic cartoons. Calvin didn't expect to show his visual material in the exhibition, but I couldn't resist. Good work, mate. And it was that's one of the joys of the show, has been connecting with like minds and people with lived experience of dealing with ethics, morality and spiritual matters around human needs. Speaking of human needs, these two artists in the hallway here are seniors from Oamaru. The first is John Mitchell, who many years ago, I think in the 90s, won a drawing award in Christchurch called the Cranley Barton Drawing Award. And John cycles in North Otago. And John said this about this work. Gravel Road, John in North Otago, graphite, oil and pastel, $650. This is a Zen drawing based on my frequent cycle rides on country roads in North Otago. I wanted to capture the emptiness and blandness of the North Otago landscape, a severe commentary on greed over abundance. Okay, I can kind of see how that's part of a Middle Eastern disaster capitalism war zone sort of poetic narrative on a personal hikoi journey. Thank you, John. I understand the despair you are speaking about there. And it's always nice to illustrate these things with nature or climatic. This is John's other work called Time of Monsters. I could read you what John said about that too. Based on the late paintings of Goya, notably the so-called black paintings, this drawing in oil pastel is intended to act as a timely metaphor for the current madness of Trump, Putin, and Netanyahu. Okay. Well, you see? And the collective unconscious made it so. Marnie Campbell, my ex-anthropologist friend, and Oamaru. Both of those wee works here. She's working on industrial sandpaper for some reason, but there's a sort of lovely sparkle to it in certain lights on sides. In developing this work, I want to convey a message that war is not something distant from us. We need only consider our own history and remember, for example, Parihaka. There are many more examples. My name is Marnie Campbell. I'm a painter currently living and working in Oamaru. My background is anthropology. I have a master's degree in social ecology, chaos, complexity, and creativity. And you can understand why Marnie and I are friends. We have lively discussions. This work is $300, and I believe all of it will be donated to Palestinian refugee cause. Good on you, Marnie. Marnie did sell this wee one to one of her relatives, I believe. Again, you know, it's wonderful to have connected and got to know, and I already knew these people, but I like artists in the margins, hey? You know, often they're the realest ones, holding their own flame against the wind of despair in our culture. It's easy to burn bright when you get fuel from the culture, but when you don't, it means more. Although art is its own reward. This is Marnie's other work, remembering Parihaka. Parihaka being a non-violent resistance movement of Taranaki region, and many of the slaves were working in Port Chalmers and Aramoana area, and there is a grave site near the gardens in Dunedin. Those people, a part of our colonial slavery system. Non-violence met with violence. Of course, now we just cancel people we don't like. The tall work on the right is called the COVID Op. Rip Mum. It's about the size of a door. It is my work. It's where I have reworked or put together again some danglies onto a canvas. And it's figurative, it's rumpty, it's a war scene, it's like refugees. It might remind me of my family, of my mother, myself, and my brother, who felt a lot like refugees in the 80s, going from a boyfriend's house to boyfriend's house as Mum was more or less some kind of solo parent prostitute for our board in between her 3 menial jobs and getting her social work degree and not being home and virtually being abandoned, and all of that guilt about being a boy and not a girl, because she could have had an abortion, you know. That was my war. This is Nathan Thompson. Nathan's an outsider painter in the shed, and he's done a kind of bogan spray paint drone work here, based again on the Kurt Cobain lyric. Yeah. And the rocket launches from various regional spaceports in New Zealand, they are in fact attributed to guidance systems in Palestine. So satellites that get launched from New Zealand directly kill and maim Palestinians. We are effectively part of the fascist war machine. You know, quite directly in that result. We don't design those satellites, but I feel this show is like myself being a conscientious objector. But that's what New Zealand is now, folks. And most of you are silent. Most of you are so stressed out with your mortgages and your food bills. Most of you don't want to rock the boat. Most of you are on Instagram or X or whatever the hell you're on. Most of you are walking dead inside, a little bit like these beeswax and Hessian faces by Tom Turner in Wanganui. Zombies, mummies, sealed inside your apathetic, enclosed down inner child, your souls in some kind of purgatory. I love the way the light is echoing off the golden door there. I'm going to play Tom's Correro. This isn't Tom, but I will, if you excuse me a moment, I will access the thingy. Alright, no, how do you do it? How do you do it? You click that, yes. There you go. And then here's Tom. That didn't take long, did it? Is it going to work? No, it's not going to work. No, it's not going to work. Gosh, how do you do it with one hand? No, that's Tandy. Where's Tom? Tom, I didn't click it right. There we go.
Song of Grief 1. Sealed behind the mask. No scream, no sob. Unrelenting pain without relief. Grief walks the scorched olive grove. Stitched mouth cannot speak its name. Song of Grief 2. Bandages and beeswax cannot contain the scars beneath, the grief and pain. I have nothing more to say. It hurts too much.